Sasha here, and I'm so excited to invite Joy Cho of Joy Studios with us today. For those of you who don't know, Joy Cho is the creative director of Joy Studios, which launched in 2005. And since then, you started out as a graphic designer, but it's evolved into so much more. Now you have licensing and product lines with the likes of Target, Band-Aid, and so many others. And you were also named one of the Time's most influential people on the internet for 2 consecutive years. One area that off the bat, I think that we're hearing a lot is the topic of mom guilt and being at home and creating the separate space of trying to get done what you have to get done. But then also, your children being like either in the same room or in the next room and finding that space. So like, I think that first starts from having just the mental space of separating the two, but is that something you've experienced, and how have you been managing that?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. I mean, I think that when this whole thing first started, there was definitely an overwhelming feeling of, I just cannot do this. And like, how am I going to manage it? And when it first started, we all thought maybe it would just be for a couple of weeks. We were just like, okay, it's fine. I had to quickly grab stuff from my studio. The kids are home, figuring that out. And then their school started sending online classes and lessons and things. We were also in the process of moving, which is a whole other layer. But now that we've been in this over a month or so, however long it's been, I think that our new normal, what I found to work well, is to sort of set up our routines. I mean, they say that with having kids anyway, routine is really important. Schedules are really important. It's the same thing now, especially if you are expecting your kids to follow school. They need the structure that they would normally have. Now, we know we can't replace what they're doing at school. We know we can't replace their teachers, which are way better suited to doing this than we are, unless you happen to be a teacher. But for me, I think we've gotten into a good place with having a set location for learning for the kids, set times, and knowing that school's not necessarily going to go all day, but knowing that for us, it helps to just sort of start first thing in the morning. And if you can get done by lunch, great. Or if you need to go a little bit past lunch, that's fine too. And basically having set places for everybody too, because my husband and I need to bop around a little bit with our laptops between different kids and in different rooms. And if we're both on calls at different times, but just for each kid, we have 2 to have a set place for their school. I think it's helpful so that it doesn't feel chaotic for them and it feels like they have a place to go.
What are 1 or 2 things we can immediately do to reshift energy and reshift the space of where we're working?
That's the thing. We don't all, if you've been working in an office and you've never worked from home, you're not going to necessarily have had this. So I think dedicated space doesn't mean a separate room. We don't necessarily people don't have a separate home office all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, we've had to make modifications. So in some cases, people are using their dining rooms for their kids' educational area. If their kids do have rooms with desks, obviously that makes sense. Sometimes it's kitchen counters. And so when I say designated, I don't mean, hey, this now becomes an office and you can't use it for anything else. It's really more just having the consistency and sort of just giving the physical space that a child might need, even if it's this wide, a 3-foot wide section where they can just have enough space for their stuff. So, but really you use whatever you can. And as much as you can divide it off, even if that just means like moving a small table into a corner of a room or just having an area in the living room. But also it being a table too, I think.
Are there 1 or 2 things that could immediately spruce up a space? Because like I have my table, it's just a white table, desk I'm working at, but I know items mean different things to different people, but are there some immediate things to like make it, since you're going to sit there probably at least 3 to 4 hours a day, if not more, any quick things that people can do to elevate the space a bit more?
Artwork is number 1. That's usually pretty easy. Not that you're going to go out and buy some new piece of artwork right now, but you probably have like posters or prints that you've ordered. You haven't put them in frames, or things that you have gotten some beautiful mailer that you could just hang up, even if you tape it with some washi tape. And honestly, that and a plant. I mean, I've been filling, we just moved, so I've been filling our house with plants, which is even just have a plant right next to you, which is like breathe some life in it, especially because we're not getting outside as much as we used to. So those are some really easy things, and obviously things that are child-proof to make sure they're pretty safe for kids.
I was just at Trader Joe's doing like one of my very few grocery runs. I saw an orchid. I just picked that up, and it just spruces up the place really beautifully.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what about any activities, especially with kids around, to break up the monotony? I feel like every day is feeling the same. Are there any certain activities you guys have at home that help break that monotony up?
There's a few things for us, and just in terms of the kids sitting a lot, that we're trying to do, because we're not, yes, you can go out and take walks, but we don't, we just moved, so we don't have like our yard set up or anything yet. And so things like, my husband has sort of instilled this, but if there's a point where they're on screens for a long time, he makes them set a timer and do jumping jacks every 5 or 10 minutes. And so it just makes them like go from this to like being active, getting their blood flowing, and then if they have to go back to a screen for work or just for chill time or something like that, then it's broken up, and it's not just hours of being on a screen, because kids aren't necessarily used to that, especially little ones, for their schooling. And then like there's been little things that I've been doing with my kids that are new to just being at home, which is life drawing, because I went to art school, and it was just something that I used to do in my early art school days. So either every morning or in the afternoon after lunch, we'll sit down and we'll all draw something. So I'll just choose a different subject, and then we'll all sit around and draw it. And you as a parent don't have to be an artist to do life drawing. I mean, I happen to doing it, but at the same time, even if you can't draw, that's not the point. The point is just looking at something together and being able to draw something and seeing how everyone's is different. And then you have this really nice collection of drawings that you could put into a book or a journal or something after all of this.
I'm going to jump around here because I think there are a couple of your lessons as a whole. Like, yes, there's something that we're currently experiencing. I think as it relates to just, you've done this being a mom since for many years now. And I know that your background is that, I think what we share in common is that we both have immigrant parents, and your parents were kind of the first entrepreneurs that you ever knew without really realizing it. What are one or two big lessons that you've learned from them? It can be related to motherhood, it can be related to being an entrepreneur that you have now been able to reflect on and take away.
I think that, when I spent my childhood with my parents being away a lot, my mom had a day job, and my dad was always at the restaurant. It started as 1, and then it was 2, and then 3, and then 4. So that was his full-time thing. And then my mom would do her day job, and then she would go and help my dad at night. So they weren't around that much. And especially at nighttime, a restaurant schedule is an evening schedule. It's not your normal 9 to 5. And as a kid, I really didn't understand that. And I'm 8 years older than my brother. So by the time I was old enough to babysit by myself, be home by myself, I was taking care of a little kid. And so I didn't get to go out and like have fun and go to parties. And my parents were always like, if you want to go, you have to take your little brother with you. And that's no fun for a high school kid. So I think that at the time I resented it a lot because I didn't understand why they had to leave us. Like, I just saw it as them leaving us. I didn't see it as them working to build a life for us and the life that they were able to provide for us. And it's one of those things I obviously appreciate now, and I know now, and as not only as an adult or as a parent, but also as a business person, I think that I learned from them how to create something from nothing. I mean, a lot of times with businesses, there are obviously different models now with startups and getting funding and capital and all that stuff. But prior to sort of the current model of startups, a lot of it was all grassroots. It was all mom and pop style. And that's what my parents did. And that's the way I grew my business too, where it was like, okay, what do you have in your bank account? Use that small amount and grow it until it gets more, and then use that money to grow and use that money to grow. You're not like getting a huge amount of money from someone else. And so I think I learned that indirectly. Like, they never sat down and taught me those lessons, but you just realize it. And then I think it's just like the idea of working hard and knowing that if you have a dream or you have something you want to do, it's not just about starting it, it's about sticking to it and seeing it through, because lots of people have ideas, lots of people can start things, but finishing things and sticking to things is way harder. And so to say I started a business, great, but if you can talk to people who have started a business and grown them and still have them 5, 10, 15 years later and are still happy, those are the people you want to talk to, because those are the people who have stuck with it and who have figured out how to sustain it and how to grow it over time.
That's huge. And I know that you've been running this since 2005, so it's 15 years later and you are still going. What do you feel is the next horizon for you, or do you even think that way? Like, what would be the ultimate dream here for you to just keep creating, keep doing, or is there something else?
I stopped a long time ago thinking too far ahead in the future when it comes to business. I think, which kind of goes against probably some of the, I mean, I don't consider myself a startup by any means, but sort of like the new startup model, you have to do 5-year projections and 10-year projections. And, you know, I'm just a business that started in a way different way. So I've never had to have any formal business plans like that. But I have found that even when people ask me, like, where do you see Joy in 5 years or in 10 years? Like, because my company has evolved in so many ways I didn't expect, partially based on social media and partially based on opportunities that have come because of social media that made me pivot in ways I didn't plan to. I find that thinking too far ahead doesn't help me, because yes, I can set goals. I can say what I want to achieve, how I want to help people. But at the same time, I've really just been thinking probably like more of a year or two ahead, something like that, in terms of the things I want to do. Because you know how it goes with production for various things. If we want to do up a new product, it does take sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years to get that in motion. So in general, I think that, I want to continue to do more of what I'm doing, which is bringing joy to people in various ways through products, through content. We just released our first kids book and we have 2 more coming out this year. And there are so many different ways to do the things I like to do. And I think that's what makes it interesting and what makes me still want to do it, because although I started my path as a designer and I grew my company in an untraditional way because of the way social media came about, it's allowed me the opportunity to be able to do so many things. And I have the skill set to do certain things, but when I don't have the skill set, I still figure it out because I want to go after it and I want to do it. And so I don't have necessarily specific things to tell you other than that. It's just more. How can I help people more? How can I reach people more?
Yeah, obviously it's really hard work. It's also the ability to pivot and think about, not be scared by whatever is next. That it seems like you've been able to kind of alter and pivot and not be held like, I'm not just a graphic designer or creative director. I can be an author. I can have an academy. I can do all of these different things. I guess, a follow-up question to that, is there anything that you did early on or even continue to do to invest in yourself? And when I say that, I mean, whether it's an educational course or just kind of a belief system, is there anything that's really important for you to kind of maintain that mindset and maintain it over such a long period of time? 15 years is no joke to continue to keep at something. And you have to, I feel like, always replenish the bank, so to speak, so you can keep going. What is that investment that you make in yourself to keep going?
I think it's a couple of things. I think it's logistically, I read a lot of business books. My growth in terms of being a boss and an employer has been very organic, and it's not it's not like going from one person to 100 people. So it's a different thing, but it's also just the idea of always wanting to just understand how I could be better and how I could be stronger, either as a leader or as a business person, because I didn't go to B school. I am just figuring stuff out as I go. And also I think it's a little bit of grace too, in the last couple of years, I've hit some turning points where I felt this pressure to go in one direction, which would be to go after investors and seek funding and do that whole thing and be able to take Joy to this much bigger level of hundreds of employees and be able to have C-level executives and that go from this sort of boutique-y size to something that was like much more grand. And I chose not to. I mean, it was just, and if anything, I mean, right before all this happened, I actually decreased the size of my team because the day-to-day and managing everything was getting to be a lot for just me and in the way that I wanted to operate. And I realized that certain parts of it were just not, they weren't benefiting me the way that I felt. Like they were great, but I was also just feeling burnt out. So I think that trusting your gut and giving yourself grace to just feel like you can grow your business the way that you want to. I mean, not everybody can do that because there's partners and investors and all that, but because I don't have that, I was able to ebb and flow. And I think that people see growth as a specific thing. They see it as more and more and more and more and more. And that's what I think I thought for the longest time. And in the last 6 months, I've realized that maybe less is more, you know, maybe having less things I have to do, but being able to focus more on the really important things of my business are really the ways I want to go. You know, things are obviously a little bit different right now with the current situation. I think all small businesses are seeing shifts and everything. So that sort of changes things a little bit, but still, for me, I know it's sort of getting a chance to, sometimes it's easy to just like keep going because you're getting the work and you're getting all these things, but I realized that I also need to be happy too. And I took a little bit of assessment on that earlier this year.
I think that's so important for every entrepreneur. I think like we all face this notion of like, what is growth? Like what does that mean to each one of us? And I think we just see, you know, it's so easy to see like these collaborations you have with Target and all of these things that are being built. And yet things really do come at a cost. Like, you know, capital isn't free. You have a limited time. How much of that time are you really now creating versus managing, being a head of HR, dealing with legal, dealing with investors and all of those things? We are obviously in at least shelter in place, and this is a new era for all of us. One of my last questions for you is, what are you going to keep doing after this quarantine is lifted?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that that's the one positive thing from all of this. Like, even though we don't really know how it's all going to work out, the one positive thing. Sorry, did you hear one of my kids yelling?
I hear like light screaming in the back of it.
Okay. Yeah, light screaming. Okay. I think that a lot of people, including myself, are going to feel much more in touch with just simple things that we've been doing at home more than I think that we couldn't do before. Like, we've done so much more baking, we've done so much more cooking, we've done like the life drawing that I mentioned. There are things that I think, and not to say we've gone back to like the 1800s or something, but it's just, I find that we're doing things without technology more. Even though we have technology and we're using it more for school, I think because we're having to use it more for school, once school is over, I'm tending to like try not to use it quite as much, especially with the family. You know, we are a family that loves watching TV, and we're a family that loves, you know, like we're fine with video games. Like we are okay with some small amount of screen time for our kids, but we've been doing a lot more just like charades and like acting out things and things that I think we didn't always do before because, you know, our downtime from school and from work were screens. But now screens are so much more like part of our everyday because they have to be, that we're getting to enjoy each other more in other ways. So I hope that stuff continues.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, it's not like it's going to be a switch where all of a sudden tomorrow it's like, boom, things are back to normal. It's not going to be like that, but I hope that we'll keep that.
Yeah, it seems like there's an element of connectedness that is based in before your social time was around, you know, watching the same show or watching, you know, kind of more based around a device, and now the connectedness is just a lot more intimate.
Yeah, I had FaceTime with one of my college roommates the other day who I haven't spoken to literally in like at least 5 years. And we were FaceTiming, like looking at each other face to face, and we wouldn't have done that if we weren't in this situation. So that stuff has been really great.
Yeah, it's a very similar interactions with friends. It's been really cool. Okay, so it seems like you are a tea drinker, which I'm glad to hear. What is your favorite cup of tea?
I'm typically a black tea or green tea. So I'm definitely into the stronger caffeines for the morning. But then in terms of what flavor, like I could go coconut, I could go almond. Right now I'm drinking like a more cinnamon black tea. So I definitely like some sort of flavor in there.
Thank you so much, Joy. Really appreciate you just sharing kind of life as it is right now and lessons and creating space, mental and physical space in this new era. And really appreciate you sharing that with us.